Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40K, the Necron channel. Now in today's video we're going to be doing another unit review. This time we're going to be looking at the Doomsday Ark, one of the two arcs, or three arcs technically, that we've got within our Necrons faction. And we're going to talk about the datasheet and go through the abilities, the synergies, and then give it a Planet 40K rating at the end of the video. Right, so let's get involved with the Doomsday Ark and the rear side of the data card. It is 185 points, so quite, I say pricey, but it's not massively overcosted or anything like that. Now it was at 145 at the end of 9th edition, so it has gone up 40 points. Now it is quite comparable to the Lokhust heavy destroyers. A unit of 3 of those I believe is 135, so they are cheaper, but we'll get onto a bit of those comparisons later in this video. So the Doomsday Ark is equipped with the Doomsday Cannon and the 2 Gorse Flare arrays with the armoured bulk. It is of course a vehicle which can fly. Not that fly is that useful this edition, but it still has it. So let's move into the statistics to begin. It's gone down in movement, it's only now moving 9 inches. Pretty much every single vehicle we've got now has gone down in movement. So that is to be expected. It used to be 12 inches, now 9. The toughness of course has gone up, as expected as well. The 10th edition vehicles and monsters have gone up, so it's now toughness 9 instead of toughness 6. Now I don't believe 9 is the best toughness. I believe it probably could have sneaked up to a 10, but a 9 is still okay, it's still decent. It's got a 3-up armor save, it's also got a 4+ invulnerable save, which you can see at the bottom right of the data card. Wounds 14, leadership 6, and the objective control is 5. So a nice bit of objective control for this model. Now it does get bracketed when it's down to 5 wounds or less. It will be just simply a -1 to the hit roll. It used to bracket at 7 wounds, so slightly better. Now I'm going to talk about this part now because, well, this kind of relates to 9th edition a little bit. We've lost quantum shielding, of course. All of our vehicles don't have quantum shielding anymore, except for the command barge, which has an advanced quantum shielding. This has lost it. It's got a better inbun though. It's got a 4+ instead of a 5+, but we're now being able to be wounded on, well, less than a 4+. However, we are toughness 9, so in order to wound us, they need to be strength 10 or more to get us wounded on a 3+, I suppose. Now, the other abilities that are there, we've got Deadly Demise D3, so an explosion on a 6. Reanimation Protocols, of course, which is our army roll, and Overwhelming Obliteration in your movement phase if this model remains stationary. Until the end of the turn, the Doomsday Cannon has the Devastating Wounds ability. The Devastating Wounds, if you're not sure what that is by now, if you make a wound roll of a 6, you don't need to roll to, we don't get a save, there's no invulnerable save, there's no normal armor save, and your opponent is going to take as many mortal wounds as the damage has in terms of the weapon characteristics. So in this case it will be damage 4, so there'll be 4 mortal wounds. In fact, let's get into the weapons, because that is the main reason for taking a Doomsday Ark, isn't it? Because of the Doomsday Cannon. Now it's got 2 keywords that are associated with this weapon, which were from 9th edition, but they're slightly different in 10th edition. So first of all, it's got Blast. Every unit that's got 5 models, you get an additional attack. So if there's 10 models, you're going to get 2 additional attacks and so on. And it's also got Heavy, and in this edition that is a +1 to the hit roll if it remains stationary, which actually goes quite nicely with the ability Overwhelming Obliteration. When you remain stationary, you also get Devastating Wounds. It pretty much needs to remain stationary to be the most effective. Now in 9th edition, you had to remain stationary to make use of the higher powered profile. So there's not much of a change, but this edition you can still move and still fire and still get the profile that it actually shows. You will just be wounded, you will just be hitting on a 3+ without devastating wounds. Now it's 72-inch range as it was, it's D6 +1, so we're getting an extra shot in comparison to 9th edition. It used to be just D6, which is okay. It's a minimum of 2 this time. Still janky, you still roll that 1 to make a 2, but you could also roll a 6 and make 7 shots there. And then with Blast on top of that, it could get quite nasty. Blizzard Skill 3+, which could go down to a 2+ with Heavy if you stay stationary. The strength used to be 10, it is now strength 15, which is quite nice really. Strength 15, even toughness 14, you're wounded on a 3+. There's not that many models that are toughness 14 anyway. Toughness 15, you're wounded on a 4+, and anything more, which I don't know if there is anything more or not, but then you're wounded on a 5, but it's not likely. The AP has gone down. It used to be -5, it's now -4, but that's totally fine. That's more than enough. You're either taking away their reliable save or you're putting them on an invuln save anyway. And the damage, this is the best part of the profile. It used to be janky, it used to be D6. It's now just a flat 4, which is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, every single one that goes through, 4 damage, bearing in mind that we could potentially have devastating wounds on all the shots if you stay stationary, is a really good weapon now. Really good weapon. Now when you combine that weapon with the fact that this is such a resilient model, it means you kind of see where the points are coming from. 185, you kind of understanding now why it is that price. Now it's also got 2 Ghost Flare arrays with lethal hits, rapid fire 5. They're virtually the same weapons that the Necron warriors have, but these are the arrays, so you're getting 5 of them, or 5 shots with each one, sorry, and then you've got the rapid fire 5, and you've also got 2 of these, don't forget. So you can have 10 shots as a minimum, 20 shots if you're within rapid fire range, so that's within 12 inches, because it's got a 24-inch range. Ballistic skill is 3+, it's not heavy like the other weapons, so therefore we are actually hitting on a 3+. There are ways of putting it to a 2+, we'll talk about that in a moment. Only strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. So it lost a bit of AP, but that's kind of standard. Then we go on to the Armoured Bulk, which is his melee weapon for this edition. Only 3 attacks, weapon skill 4+, strength 6, no AP, 1 damage. Don't expect too much from it. If you are within engagement range, you can still fire out this edition, which is quite nice with the blast ability. With the blast weapons, in fact, in 9th edition we weren't allowed to fire blast at all. But this edition we can actually fire out of engagement range because of the big guns never tire ability in the core rulebook. So we can fire out. We can't fire into our engagement range though, because blast won't work. And as a disadvantage to having that, we can also be targeted even if we are within engagement range because we are a vehicle. That applies to monsters as well. So yeah, that is the front of the data card, I guess. I want to now talk about the battlefield role for the Doomsday Ark. Well, let's do this in bullet points. The first role is it's a backline gun unit, of course. This is going to be at the back, 72-inch range. You could put it as far back as possible, as long as you've got a good firing range, or firing lane, sorry, and you could see most of the battlefield. Obviously, you don't want to be tucking it behind terrain because you're going to have to move it, which you don't want to be doing. So you need to have this thing in the open slightly, and you want to have the best lane possible for the best visibility. It's, of course, our anti-tank weapon. I'd also include, in fact, anti-elite units such as Terminators, for example, Custodes, elite infantry, because the damage 4 is going to do a lot of work on them kind of models. But really, yeah, anti-tank, going up against other vehicles, other monsters, devastating wounds, hitting on 2s, strength 15, it's going to do a lot of work against them units. You're not going to be firing this at Gaunts, at Guardians, at those kind of models. It's just not worth it, is it? And the last bullet point I've got for battlefield role is you're going to park it on your home objective if possible. Of course, terrain will kind of dictate where you're going to be. But if there's an opening and there's an objective in your deployment zone but has a really good firing lane, that's a perfect spot for your Doomsday Ark to sit on with objective control 5. So that way you're at least holding it, which will, that's going to go towards your primaries, your mission objectives, as well as some secondaries potentially as well. Now, as for some synergy for the Doomsday Ark, I want to mention this, but I wasn't sure if I should or not. I'm going to mention it anyway. You can get a +1 to the hit roll and still move this thing with the Sovereign Corona Aura with character that's within 6 inches while holding that enhancement. They'll effectively give a +1 to the hit roll for anything within 6 inches because they will act as they are being led. Now, the reason I wasn't sure whether to put this in, because you don't want to be moving this. You want devastating wounds. And you've also got the heavy keyword anyway, so you don't really need to move it, so you'll be hitting on a 2+ anyway. It's only then really the stratagems that you're going to get some bonus from, but it's only then really the command protocol of Conquering Tyrant to reroll your wound rolls. Don't think you need it with strength 15. And of course you're not going to get the character buffs because they do not apply when you're using the Sovereign Coronal. So I put that in there. Maybe it will help with your Ghost Flare arrays, but really don't necessarily need it. What you could use, however, is a Technomancer to be healing D3 lost wounds with the Technomancer ability in the movement phase. That's obviously going to stack on top of your reanimation protocols that happens in our command base. So double D3, D3 times 2, potentially times 3 with a Canoptic Reanimator on top of that. That's going to be an additional D3, so it could literally be 3 D3 heals in our own turn, which is mad. You can further boost the defenses of the Doomsday Ark with the Canoptic Spider, with the Fabricator Chlorate Aura, for vehicles within 6 inches for a 6+ Furno pain save, and also the Gloom Prism will give a 4+ Furno pain save against psychic attacks. So you've got those options on top. So I wanted to do a tiny bit of a discussion in terms of the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. You could of course get 3 Lokhust Heavy Destroyers for 135 points, then you could add the Lokhust Lord for another 85 points, I believe it is. Now you're only going to get 3 shots in total with the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers with the Ghost Destructors. Now those things are 48-inch range now, they're strength 14 minus 4 AP, but the damage is better, it's 6. and they've got lethal hits as well, but they're not as tanky as the Doomsday Ark. They've not got the same toughness. They're only toughness 6, not toughness 9. They've only got 4 wounds each, not 14, and they're not going to have an invulnerable save either. Yes, they get into reroll wound rolls of a 1, but really, those things, the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers with the Dagor's Destructors, in my opinion, they need to have the Lokhust Heavy Destroyer, or the Lokhust Lord, sorry. That's going to make it more expensive than the Doomsday Ark. I think they need him because they're going to be moving, they're going to be moving around, flying around the battlefield. They've only got 7-inch movement, but they can get on top of a ruin and then start firing out. But they're on the move, whereas the Doomsday Ark needs to remain stationary for the devastating wounds, which is another thing that the Lokhust Destroyers don't actually have. So I just wanted to mention that comparison in there. The Lokhust Destroyers are really good, or sorry, the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers, they are really good. There's nothing wrong with them at all. But there is definitely a bit of competition from the Doomsday Ark. So let's get into the pros and cons for the Doomsday Ark. We're going to start with the pros, of course. Resilient vehicle, toughness 9, 14 wounds, 3 plus armor save, 4 plus invulnerable save. Very resilient, of course. So 72-inch range is the next thing. That's a massive amount of range. You can stick this thing at the back, stick it on your home objective. It can literally see the entire board. You know, obviously terrain is going to be a little bit of a nuisance, but 72-inch range is cool. You've got the heavy keyword on top of that, so you don't require the character for with the Sovereign Coronal. So you can be hitting on a 2+ with damage 4 and devastating wounds on top, especially if you don't move. All kind of stacks together quite nice. It's a great anti-tank / anti-elite weapon with that damage 4 in particular. That's the kind of units you go for, and it's doing a lot of work against them. And you've even got the added bonus of the anti-infantry Gorse Flayers as well, which will assist you not only just in general with units that are coming close by, but also in engagement range you can fire them as well. Now as for the cons, it's going to cost more than 3 Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. Now that doesn't include the Lokhust Lord, of course, but just the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers alone, it will cost you more. If you do move this thing, you're going to be removing your heavy keyword as well as devastating wounds, which makes it very not as useful as it should be. So you kind of are tied down slightly to where you've been positioned from deployment, unless you're prepared to move it and lose out slightly on one of your turns. And finally, the terrain. As mentioned already a few times, the terrain could be a potential nuisance to your game. You're going to have little units that are going to be hiding in and amongst terrain features, obscuring terrain. And we're not towering, of course, we're just a standard vehicle, so that's going to get in the way slightly, and then potentially we just get charged and we're not going to be firing it. So let's get on to the Planet 40k rating today for the Doomsday Ark. I like this unit, I like this vehicle, it's very good this edition. The last edition, I think it absolutely stunk. With the janky D6 damage, well the D6 hits, D6 damage. I didn't really like it. This edition, I've gone out and bought myself a couple because I thought, you know what? Let's add to the collection. We need a couple of these. I think they're good. I think they're good. Comparable to the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. They've just got a little bit of a different function, maybe. But they ultimately kind of do the same thing. But let's get on to the rating because I am waffling slightly. The Planet 40k rating today from me is going to be a 4.5 stars. So guys, that is my rating today for the Doomsday Ark. Let me know yours down in the comments below. And subscribe and like on your exits, of course. Guys, thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.